ABNB is the narrowboat broker that specialises in selling quality new and used boats nationwide. Visit the ABNB website to buy or sell your canal boat. Hello and welcome to Fossway Basin in Lichfield, where the old canal that used to run through here is being slowly restored. 4 years ago I made a video about the project and I've left a link to that in the description. Back then, this is what the basin looked like. It was just being constructed, all very much a building site, with new blockwork and brickwork going in. Today, the basin walls are complete, but the weeds have taken over and the mooring rings lie unused. The decorative brick narrowboat of 4 years ago has been submerged, not by water, but by gorse bushes. On the face of it then, it looks as though this whole area has just been left to go back to wilderness, and that is sort of true to an extent, but there's a very good reason for it, and it's not a problem.
One of the issues when you do create and restore a canal, if you can't actually finish the restoration and put it into water, nature wants to take over. It looks a lot worse than it is. Vegetation does keep coming at you, and it's a constant maintenance issue. COVID did seriously affect what we were doing, but we put in several measures, working at distance, so people could work as long as they kept 2 meters apart from one another. There were a number of our volunteers who could not continue. They had fragile people at home, but there was a hard core of our volunteers carried on right the way through COVID and have continued. And basically what you see of the channel behind you along Falkland Road is testament to that. A lot of work has been carried out elsewhere, particularly down at Tamworth Road, Darnford, where there's currently a whole team of guys working there actually lining section and putting some sections into water.
It probably helps to see a map. Firstly, here's Lichfield, and closer up, here's the route the canal will be taking from one side of the city to the other. I showed some parts of the route in the prior video and will revisit them in this one, as well as looking at the new work that's been done since my last visit. First of all, a quick trip west along the canal bed to properly show how overgrown it's become and to check on any progress at Fossway Lane. In 2019, this was the canal channel, newly dug and coming to a halt at the road, which will need a bridge put in place. Fast forward to today and it's the same but massively overgrown. But again, there's a very good reason. Money.
We haven't done very much up at this end of Fossway Heath. The priority is at Darnford Moors because there's a time limit on spending money. Here, really, it's been a matter of just, even though it doesn't look like it, trying to keep it tidy. Now, you know, this untidiness there is not untidy. It's excellent plants for pollinators, which are so important. Not only as pollinators, but also the birds coming in for any fruits that are there. So, and again, the heaps of stuff that we've cut down behind me, environmentally, it is far better to leave it to rot down than having nasty, nasty bonfires, even though I had the reputation as being the Trust's pyromaniac. But we try not to have bonfires.
OK, let's see what has been changed then, starting back at the basin. Here's another shot from 4 years ago showing the end of the basin wall alongside Falkland Road. The canal needs to run along that green bit. And I'm pleased to say that's begun, with this new channel being cut out, bricked up and lined. It will ultimately follow the road on a long left-hand curve around past a new housing estate towards a railway line. Bear in mind that this work is largely being done by volunteers in their spare time, people who just love canals and want to see this useful channel added back into the nation's network.
If volunteers just come in and the one thing they must bring is just enthusiasm, and if they come to start to restore canals with enthusiasm, we'll teach them the skills if necessary that we need to. And we're choosing methodologies particularly to suit the skills of the people we've got. It's no point in saying I will do this with technologies that you can't get or get volunteers to work with. The sort of bricklaying and some of the excavation methods and some of the piling methods, we're developing those with machines and with equipment that in fact suits somebody coming in. You can train them how to do it and make it happen. We can get college students here to do work experience, and that's something which I don't think had been done very much across the country. We have a very good working relationship with our local colleges, and we're actually identifying places of work where college students, bricklaying students, can come and do real bricklaying, and this wall behind me in fact is a testimony to that. We had college students down here for something like a year and a half actually putting and rebuilding this wall behind us.
And it's supported by all kinds of donors, from big companies to individuals, such as the people who sponsored the metal piling along this edge, rewarded for their donations by having their names recorded on little plaques. Not just people from the UK either. Overseas donors chipped in too, such as Linda and Nick from Australia. The new canal route has several challenges, even on this short stretch following the line of the road. Obviously, it all needs to be dug out, lined and rewatered, and it will have to go under an access road into the housing estate. And the elevation of the land presents extra challenges too.
From Fossway Heath to here, the land actually goes up and then down. So to get the canal to this point, they're going to dig a fairly hefty cutting. But a little bit further on, there is a roundabout, a busy roundabout that the canal will need to go under. Now, when the roundabout was built, they knew the canal was coming, so they put in underneath it a concrete culvert. But the canal will obviously need to go down in order to get to that culvert. So they're going to have to build two brand new locks, one just there and one a little bit further up ahead. 3 meters descent on each lock should mean the canal can connect with the concrete culvert and go under the roundabout.
But that's where things get even more complicated, because on the other side of the roundabout is a railway line. The canal underpass emerges on this side of it, just there where that fence is. And things here haven't gone to plan at all.
When I was here 4 years ago, the road underneath the railway did not exist. That was simply one continuous solid embankment. The hope was that when they put the road in under the railway, they could make the bridge big enough to take the canal as well. Unfortunately, for various technical reasons, that did not prove to be possible. So the Canal Trust still have to work out a way of digging a hole through the embankment to take the canal.
Looking at it from the far side, here's where the canal comes out, and it'll still be a few metres down at that point. Whilst digging a hole here sounds simple, as there's a live running railway line above it with heavy trains on it, it's actually a big job. On the other side, there's both good news and bad news. The good news is that there's a nice wide channel dug out by the housing developer to take the canal further along the side of the bypass. The bad news is, at the end here, that channel's not quite in the right place for where the canal will come through, so the Trust will have to do some hefty re-digging to realign it from this sort of direction and rejoin the new ditch a little further along. Luckily for boaters, trees are being planted along the edge, which should reduce traffic noise. New viewers may be wondering why on earth go to all this trouble for a canal which might be used by just a few boaters? Well, the answer is, it's much more than that.
The point of restoring this section of canal and canals in general is simply that it's a joy to walk along canals. If you can walk along a dry bedded canal, it's nice, and there's lots of environment that you see. There's plants, there's insects, there's the wildlife, there's everything, and you meet people. You actually talk to people on the canal. Yes, it's just. When you put boats on it, that's just another level. So, but I think even if we just had this linear park, which we're doing 7 miles of linear park from the bottom to the top, that in itself is a fabulous thing for the community.
One of the things that we learnt from COVID, and the community learnt from COVID, when people were going out, 2020, getting out in lockdown for walks, the traffic on this site particularly, so close to new residential areas in Lichfield, was amazing, and people at that time were walking through and saying, we'd no idea that there was so much here, because they'd never walked it until COVID. So we picked up a lot of new members then, but certainly a lot of enthusiasts for walking the towpaths. So no, it's very much for the community. We have people coming here, cyclists, for example, who come into the area specifically to do the towpaths, and joggers, of course, and, well, more and more canal enthusiasts coming.
After the canal reaches London Road, it goes under a bridge that thankfully already exists and enters Gallows Wharf, so called because it's on the site of the old gallows where men were hanged for their crimes. This is that bridge under London Road, through which the canal will run, coming from the housing estate we just saw. Until a few years ago, Gallows Wharf was infilled and was a pedestrian walkway, but the Trust have dug it back to the canal channel and lined the edges with brick. Though the original wharf no longer stands, its existence is commemorated. Yes, there will need to be a bit more digging here and the vegetation removed, but honestly, that's trivial in terms of the overall scheme. Less trivial is moving things like this pipe that lies along the bed, as it would be in the way as it stands. Pedestrians haven't lost their walking route, as the canal towpath now provides that space. The channel goes off into the distance and around a corner towards Tamworth Road. The next section, from the chip shop to Cricket Lane, and which the Trust is calling Gallows Reach, is not yet dug, but the path it will take is straightforward, at least until you get to the lane, where a new lock will have to be built to take the canal under this road. Where it emerges is currently the scene of much activity though, easily visible from the road as you drive past or peer through the railings. Perhaps another aerial view helps, with Cricket Lane at the bottom and the new canal running alongside Tamworth Road. What you can't really see from this is that the road heads gently downhill, or uphill depending which way you're facing. Either way, it means the canal must do the same, so they're having to build a couple more locks here to bring the canal up. Even as a building site, you can see the route the water will take, and alongside it the towpath. There are always additional works to the main structure on this kind of project, and here that includes a retaining wall along the next door field. Fly a very short distance further along and, excitingly, you can see the section I filmed in 2019, which even then was already in water and is now a nature reserve. This continues along the line of the road until it has to do a sharp left, which is where it currently halts. And that's because to get to the other side of Lichfield and its connection onto the Coventry Canal, which is the whole point, it needs to go across not one but two major roads. Here's the route we've seen so far, and here's where the canal needs to get to. There's no option but to go under the A51 and the A38. So this is the way it's going to go, up here into Darnford Park and then right before doing another left past the golf club and up towards Cappers Lane. And as Peter mentioned at the start of this video, there's a lot of work underway on this stretch. With the golf course to our right, the canal comes up here. Turn around and you see a flurry of activity, and this digger thingy with an amazing fully articulated bucket on its arm scoops, drops and pats mud into place over a waterproof lining. The mud, which will then have a gravel layer drizzled over it too. This would be enormous fun to have a go at, but for this bit they've unsurprisingly paid professionals to do the job. Which begs the question, how is the Trust paying for this?
We are signed up to the grants online service through the Inland Waterways Association, and a fee-paid service. And every week I get a list of every grant that's available in the country for whatever purpose. So I've got to be very keen-eyed to study things which have some relevance to the canal or to the community or environment or ecology, all those subject areas which are dear to our heart. I get this information, so I've got to pick and choose and find what's going and make it all happen with our little team to actually work it up. This scheme here took at least a year to put the package of grants together before we can actually consider spending any of it.
Here's what the finished but unwatered canal looks like, with a brand new towpath on the side. This whole area is another top spot for nature.
It's not just the blue corridor of a canal. The green corridor is as important to many of us.
Follow this shiny new canal bed along, ignoring the odd bit of detritus and the rainwater at the bottom, and you come to a halt at a lift bridge. This was actually put here in 1997, which just goes to show what a long and tortuous process a canal restoration can be when you're relying on donations and spare time. Given a fresh lick of paint more recently, it now forms the end point of a freshly finished section which is being rewatered, the supply being pumped up from a small brook alongside. About 150 yards further on from the end of the in-water section at Darnford Park, the canal will rejoin its original route at Cappers Lane, and from there up to the old junction at Huddlesford. That section is still in water, though there's going to have to be a slight wiggle put in it for the HS2 railway works. The two major projects facing the Trust are getting the canal from where it currently ends at Borrowcop underneath the A51 and then turning right underneath the A38, and those are going to be major engineering challenges. But clearly a lot of progress has been made in the last 4 years, and there is more to come. I'll keep you posted. Thanks for watching. Cheerio.